Namaskar, greetings everyone. Swami Atmagyananji is in Philadelphia, as you all know, and I am going to read the Gospel with you today. This is, let me say the prayer. Om Tava Kathamritam Tapta Jivanam Kavibiriditam Kalmashapaham Sravanamangalam Srimadatam Bhulgrananti te Bhurida Jana. I just chose this page in the English Gospel, page 406, and the date is March 23, 1884, about 2.5 years before Sri Ramakrishna's Mahasamadhi, and the name of the chapter is Rules for Householders and Monks. That's the name of the chapter, and that chapter, let me give the page number. Rules for Householders and Monks, and the chapter begins on Sunday, March 9, 1884, and this is a few days later. The next date is March 23, 1884. In between there is quite a big gap. Sri Ramakrishna was sitting in his room after his midday meal with Rakhal, Ram and some other devotees. He was not quite well. The injured arm was still bandaged. The throat cancer had not begun yet, but he had fallen and broken his this arm. That was giving him a lot of pain. But in spite of his illness, his room was a veritable mart of joy, and he the center of it. Devotees thronged there daily to see the master. Spiritual talk went on incessantly, and the very air of the room vibrated with bliss. Sometimes the master would sing the name and glories of God, and sometimes he would go into samadhi, the devotees being amazed at the ease with which the master freed himself from the consciousness of the body. That was a very special thing with Sri Ramakrishna, and also many of his disciples like Swami Turiyananda. Though there was so much sickness and intense pain in the body, in a moment they could rise above body consciousness and become absorbed in the joy of the self, Atmananda. When the joy of the self is experienced, all other things are forgotten. Nothing else matters. So that's what happened to Sri Ramakrishna. In an instant he would go into samadhi. And sometimes he would go into samadhi, the devotees being amazed at the ease with which the master freed himself from the consciousness of the body. Ram. There is talk of Narendra's marrying Mr. R. Mitra's daughter. Narendra has been offered a large dowry. This is unnecessary conversation. Sri Ramakrishna is here, absorbed in the devotion to the highest Divine Mother, and this gentleman brings about him some marriage proposal which was not even true. I don't think it really was there. Maybe hearsay or something. Master smiling, yes, Narendra may thus become a leader of this society or something like that. He will be an outstanding man, whatever career he follows. The master did not much encourage the conversation about Narendra. Master to Ram, Well, can you tell me why I become so impatient when I am ill? Sometimes I ask this man, sometimes that man, how I may be cured. You see, one must either believe everyone or no one at all. He was like a child. The Paramahamsa, they sometimes behave like a child. They don't have any kind of inhibition or fear or any hesitation. They just speak openly whatever is in their mind like a child. So he says, why do I become so impatient when I am ill? Sometimes I ask this man, sometimes I ask that man how I may be cured. You see, one must either believe everyone or no one at all. Then the next 2-3 lines are interesting. It is God Himself who has become the physicians. Therefore, one must believe all of them. But one cannot have faith in them if one thinks of them as mere men. When we go to a physician as a patient, we should have the feeling, if not conviction, at least the feeling that God Himself has come in the form of that physician to help me. That attitude will help the treatment. The treatment will be more effective. Not with an adversarial attitude or with a skepticism. No, with full faith. And it is the fact also. God Himself has come in the form of the physician. God Himself comes in the form of the patient. God comes in all the form. God comes in the form of the teacher. God comes in the form of the student. God comes in the form of the father and mother, and God comes in the form of the child. It's all He playing different roles. One person playing multiple roles, like an Emanu acting. So we should go with that faith. There is a saying in Sanskrit which says this one: Sharire jarjari bhute Yadigraste kalevare Aushadam jannavitoyam Vaidyo narayano harihi. Vaidyo narayano harihi. Sharire jarjari bhute. When the body becomes dilapidated with disease, Vyadigraste kalevare. When the body becomes afflicted with disease, Vyadhi, what is the medicine? Aushadam jannavitoyam. Medicine is Ganga water. Jannavitoyam is Ganges water. Who is the doctor? Vaidyo narayano harihi. The Lord Narayana Himself is the doctor. Many times we read in the Holy Mother Sarada Devi's life, people would come with a sickness, either their child is sick or somebody is sick. And the Holy Mother would give some Charanamritam, water used in the worship, or Ganges water, and ask them to give it to the patient. That was the treatment. So it works. The truth is, God Himself comes in the form of the Vaidya, the doctor. We should go with that faith. Then it will work. It is God Himself who has become the physicians. Therefore, one must believe all of them. But one cannot have faith in them if one thinks of them as mere men. This is another person with a medical degree. Not like that. Lord Himself has come to help me to treat my disease in the form of the physician. We should go with that faith. Shambhu was fearfully delirious. Dr. Sarvadikari said that the delirium was due to the strong medicine. Haladari asked the doctor to feel his pulse. The doctor said, "Let me see your eyes." "Oh, it is an enlargement of the spleen." Haladari said he had nothing of that sort. But Dr. Madhu gave good medicine. Ram, the medicine by itself does no good, though it greatly helps nature. I don't know what it means. He says, Ram says, the medicine by itself does no good, but it greatly helps nature. What is meaning of helping nature? I don't understand this sentence. Master, if that is so, why does opium cause constipation? Ram referred to Keshav Sen's death. Ram, you are quite right. You said that a gardener uncovers the roots of a good rose plant so that it may absorb the dew and grow stronger and healthier. The words of a holy man have been fulfilled. Master, I don't know about that. I wasn't calculating when I said it, if it is you who say that. Ram, the Brahmos have published something about you in their magazine. Sri Ramakrishna was told that the Brahma Samaj, they had a periodical magazine, and somebody wrote an article about Sri Ramakrishna in the Brahma Samaj journal. So when Sri Ramakrishna was told this one, this is what he said, Master, published about me? Why? Why should they write now? I eat and drink and make merry. I don't know anything else. He was like a child. He did not like all this publicity, writing articles about him, and that was not his nature. Ordinary teachers seek a little bit, have a desire for a little bit fame and recognition. They want to be known as very good teachers, like that. Not Sri Ramakrishna. He never cared for name or fame. So he said, published about me? Why? Why should they write now? I eat and drink and make merry like a child. I don't know anything else. I once asked Keshav, why have you written about me? He said that it would bring people here. But man cannot teach by his own power. One cannot conquer ignorance without the power of God. Earlier, and later several times, Sri Ramakrishna said that one cannot be a teacher unless one has directly received a command from God to teach. A teacher is not someone who read several books and explain the scripture. That was not what makes one a teacher. A teacher has very stringent qualifications described in the Upanishads and Vivekachudamani and other books. Minimum 2 requirements are there for one to be a teacher. Shrotriyam Brahmanishtham. A person who wants to be a teacher must be a Shrotriya and a Brahmanistha. Shrotriya means, Shruti means scripture, Upanishads. Shrotriya means a person who has mastered the essence of the Upanishads. Not necessarily in a scholarly way, but must have mastered the essence, absorbed the essence of the Upanishads and must be living according to that. It must be put into practice, not mere theoretical knowledge. That is Shrotriyam. Brahmanishtham, one who is established, firmly committed to knowledge of the self, self-knowledge, established in self-knowledge. Then there are many other qualifications, such as, for example, teacher's qualifications we are discussing. He must be a person of perfect, clean character. Nirindhana eva nalaha. All the desires must have been burnt away like the firewood placed in the fireplace. And then he must be ocean of compassion, motiveless compassion. Ahetuka daya sindhuhu. Daya means compassion. Ahetuka daya means motiveless compassion for no reason. Compassion towards all beings. Sindhu means ocean. Ocean of compassion. Like this, many qualities are there for a teacher. And on top of that, Sri Ramakrishna has said several times that for one to become a teacher, one must have received direct command from God to teach others. Anybody cannot become a teacher. So, but here coming back to page 407, top of page 407, but man cannot teach by his own power. One cannot conquer ignorance without the power of God. Power of God must be there. At one time, two men were engaged to wrestle. One of them was Hanuman Singh, and the other was a Mussalman from Punjab. The Mussalman was a strong, stout man. He had eaten lustily of butter and meat for 15 days before the day of the wrestling match. And even on that day, although all thought he would be the victor, Hanuman Singh, on the other hand, clad in a dirty cloth, had eaten sparingly for some days before the day of the match and devoted himself to repeating the holy name of Mahavir. On the day of the match, he observed a complete fast. Hanuman Singh didn't eat anything. All thought that he would surely be defeated, but it was he who won, while the man who had feasted for 15 days lost the fight. It is true strength is spiritual strength. Physical strength is strength, but not of the highest type. Bahubalam and Buddhibalam, intellectual strength is superior to Bahubala. Bahu means arm, physical strength. Superior to all of this is spiritual strength. Brahma Tejo Balam Balam. There was this great confrontation between Vasishtha, the great sage, and Vishwamitra, the big king of a large kingdom. Vasishtha had the Kamadhenu, the divine cow, which would yield whatever was necessary. And Vishwamitra had a large kingdom, army and everything. Vishwamitra once went to Vasishtha and he saw the Kamadhenu, divine cow that Vasishtha had, and he wanted to have it. He said, I am the king, this must be with me. Vasishtha said, you have a large kingdom, army, everything, this is the only thing I have to fulfill all the needs. But Vishwamitra wanted to grab it by force. Vishwamitra wanted to grab the Kamadhenu by force. He brought a large army. Vasishtha didn't have any army, only Kamadhenu was there. So Vasishtha prayed to Kamadhenu, this king has brought a large army to drag you away. You do whatever you please, mother. Kamadhenu instantly produced a very large army, much bigger than Vishwamitra's army. And Kamadhenu's army completely defeated and demolished Vishwamitra's royal army. Then Vishwamitra stands alone. Vasishtha stands alone with Kamadhenu. So what happens is Vishwamitra wanted to physically confront Vasishtha. What Vasishtha does is, he had this Brahmadanda, the staff which he used to do during meditation. He puts the Brahmadanda in front of him, Vasishtha. Vishwamitra tried all he could. Nothing worked. Finally, he considered defeat. Vishwamitra, the king, considered defeat. Defeated by Vasishtha, we had no army. Only spiritual power he had. So Vishwamitra comes up with this great insightful statement. Vishwamitra says, Dhik Kshatriya Balam Brahma Tejo Balam Balam. Kshatriya Balam means physical force, army, elephants and horses and chariots, like that one. Dhik Kshatriya Balam, this Kshatriya Bala, physical force a king has, it is of no use. Brahma Tejo Balam Balam. Brahma Teja means the power that comes by knowledge of the self. Vasishtha was a Brahmagyani. The power that a Brahmagyani has is God's power, infinite power. No army can stand in front of him. Brahma Tejo Balam Balam. True strength is strength of the knowledge of the self. That was what Vishwamitra said. So, same thing coming back to Hanuman Singh's story. Hanuman Singh chanted the name of Hanuman. Hanuman is the presiding deity of all the wrestlers. If you go to any old style gymnasium in India, not the modern workout places, fitness centers, old style gymnasium, where wrestlers train, they always have a picture of Hanuman. He is the presiding deity of all wrestlers. Hanuman gives the strength, Mahavir. Mahavir gives the strength. So Hanuman Singh got strength by praying to Mahavir. That strength is far superior to the physical strength that this Muslim wrestler had, which he got by eating a lot of meat and other ghee and other stuff. That is not true strength. It can stand in front of spiritual strength. So that was Hanuman Singh's story. What is the use of printing and advertising? He who teaches men gets his power from God. A true teacher gets knowledge and power to teach from God, not by reading books. That is not a true teacher. A true teacher is one who gets the power and knowledge to teach from God. He can be a true teacher. None but a man of renunciation can teach others. I am the greatest of all fools. All laugh. Self-deprecating humor. Sri Ramakrishna had. I am the greatest of all fools, he says. A devotee. Then how is it that the Vedas and the Vedanta and many things besides come out of your mouth? Sri Ramakrishna didn't have any scholarship and he didn't have any kind of education in school or college. But the highest wisdom contained in the Upanishads and all scriptures he used to speak. So a devotee asks, how is it that the Vedas and the Vedanta and many things besides come out of your mouth? Master smiling. During my boyhood, I could understand what the sadhus read at the Laha's house in Kamarpukur. The Laha family was a prominent family in Kamarpukur, and many traveling sadhus used to stay there for rest. And they would read and discuss many scriptures. And Sri Ramakrishna was a young boy. He would spend a lot of time with the sadhus there, with the wandering monks. And whatever they said, he absorbed it 100%. He had such power of absorption, assimilation and memory. If he heard something once, he would remember that forever. That way he would assimilate that one. Only hearing once is enough. Swamiji was also like that one. For us to memorize a few Gita slokas, it's a big struggle because our minds are cluttered with so many different things. So Sri Ramakrishna had that power. Listening to something once, he would assimilate it. During my boyhood, I could understand what the sadhus read at the Laha's house at Kamarpukur, although I would miss a little here and there. If a Pandit speaks to me in Sanskrit, I can follow him, but I cannot speak it myself. He didn't have any kind of training, but he could understand everything if somebody spoke in Sanskrit. To realize God is the one goal of life. That is the main teaching of Sri Ramakrishna. Ishvara labhaha jivanasya uddeshyaha. There are 8 aphorisms in Sanskrit. Aphorism means a sutra, like Narada Bhakti Sutra. Short sentences in Sanskrit composed by Swami Harshanandji, who recently passed away, a great scholar. Those 8 aphorisms contain all the teachings of Sri Ramakrishna. So one aphorism is, Ishvara astyeva saeva satyam. Ishvara jivanasya uddeshyaha ishvara labhaha. These are some aphorisms. So that is what he is saying here. To realize God is the one goal of life. God definitely exists, undoubtedly, no doubt about that one. He said this from his experience about the existence of God. It was not his theoretical understanding, but he knew and experienced God's presence everywhere at all times in every form. On the basis of his direct experience, he would say, God exists, he is the truth, he alone is the truth, Saeva Satyam. And then he says, the purpose of life is to realize God. This is what is. To realize God is the one goal of life. While aiming his arrow at the mark, Arjuna said, I see only the eye of the bird and nothing else. Not the kings, not the trees, not even the bird itself. This is the power of concentration that Arjuna had. One day there was a test in the art of archery. Drona was the teacher of both Kauravas and Pandavas. Arjuna was the principal student. So the test was, there was a bird sitting on the top of a tree. It probably was a clay bird. For the purpose of the test, it was put there. And the test was, one had to release an arrow that would strike only the eye of the clay bird, not any the rest of the body of the bird. So when Arjuna's turn came, Drona asks, Arjuna, what do you see? All the other people are there, other students are there, Drona's other students are there, and some other kings and princes are all assembled to see the test. So Drona asks Arjuna, what do you see? Do you see the people around here? And he says, no, I don't see anybody here. Arjuna says, do you see the tree? Arjuna says, I don't see the tree. Do you see the branch on which the bird is sitting? No, I don't see the branch. Do you see the bird? No, I don't see the bird. What do you see? Only the eye of the bird. That is the power of concentration. Our whole life, all our thoughts must be concentrated, focused only on God and nothing else. That is the ideal situation. Of course, ideal situation I am saying, not that we can all do it. Then in the Upanishad it says, Pranamo dhanusharo hyatma brahmatal-lakshya muchyate apramattena vedhavyam sharavat tanmayo bhavet. Nice verse in the Upanishad. The power of concentration. Our whole life must be centered around God. All other things must have a secondary place, if any place at all in our lives. Ideally, that is how our life should be. So in the Upanishad it says, Pranamo dhanuhu. The dhanu means the bow. The bow is pranama om. Sharo hyatma. The individual self is the arrow that goes and merges in the Supreme Self. Sharo hyatma brahmatal-lakshya muchyate. What is the goal? Lakshya means the target. What's the target? Brahman is the target. The Jivatman, individual self, is the arrow. Om is the bow. And the target to be hit is Brahman, Supreme Reality. Nothing else. Only target. Aparmattena vedhavyam. That arrow has to be released by a person who is not forgetful. That means totally concentrated on the goal. No other intruding thought must come in the seeker's mind. Sharavat tanmayo bhavet. Shara means the arrow goes and hits the target and becomes one, merges into the target. For example, if there is a deer, a hunter wants to send an arrow towards a deer. He releases the arrow. What happens to the arrow? It goes and gets stuck in the deer's body and merges in the deer's body. In the same way, this Jivatman, individual self, which I call me, that is the arrow. This arrow must go and become merged in the Supreme Reality Brahman, become one with it. Sarvat tanmayo bhavet. Tanmaya means become one with it. So that is the power of concentration. That's what here Sri Ramakrishna is explaining. To realize God is the one goal of life. While aiming his arrow at the mark, Arjuna said, I see only the eye of the bird and nothing else. Not the kings, not the trees, not even the bird itself. The realization of God is enough for me. What does it matter if I don't know Sanskrit? In the Holy Mother's life, there was a Swamiji, I forget his name, one of her disciples, and he had taken sannyas, and he wanted to learn advanced Sanskrit grammar, Panini's grammar, Ashtadhyayi, all those things. So he would attend a class in a college every day, carrying books, grammar books, memorizing the grammar aphorisms, Vyakarana Sutras. So Holy Mother came to know about this one. So when he came one day, this topic came, and Holy Mother didn't say anything. When she came to know that he was attending classes in his college or somewhere to learn Sanskrit grammar, and Radhu was there, Holy Mother's niece. Radhu blurted out. She said, "This man has taken a sannyas and is learning Sanskrit grammar at this age." Radhu said that one. Then Holy Mother said, "God has spoken through Radhu's mouth." He told the Swami, "See, it's not, the goal of life is not to know Sanskrit grammar and memorize the sutras. Goal of life is to know God." That is what Shankaracharya says in his famous Bhaja Govinda Stotram. Bhaja Govindam, Bhaja Govindam, Govindam Bhaja Mudamate, Samprapte Sannihite Kale, Nahi Nahi Rakshati Dukrinkarane. Mudamate, there was the story is like this. Story, an old man was sitting in front of his house, memorizing grammar aphorisms, Vyakarana Sutras. And Shankaracharya was passing, and he noticed this man, old man, memorizing Vyakarana Sutras, grammar aphorisms. Then he says to the, addressing the old man, "Oh Mudamate, oh foolish man," addressing the old man. Only a little bit time is left in his life, and instead of spending it in chanting the name of God, he is memorizing and chanting Vyakarana Sutras, grammar aphorisms at that age. Bhaja Govindam, Bhaja Govindam, Govindam Bhaja Mudamate, Mudamate, oh foolish man. Bhaja Govindam, pray to Lord Govinda, pray to Lord Govinda, pray to Lord Govinda. Samprapte Sannihite Kale. When the time for departure comes, someday it will come, sooner than we think sometimes. Samprapte Sannihite Kale, Nahi Rakshati Dukrinkarane. Dukrinkarane is a Vyakarana Sutra, grammar aphorism. Kri is the root, to do. Dukrinkarane is the aphorism, and he was memorizing it. When the time for departure comes, this grammar aphorism will not save you. What saves you is the name of God. Instead of memorizing, wasting your time at this advanced age, oh foolish man, Shankara says to that old man, "Little time left in chanting the name of God. That should be our goal of life." To realize God is the one goal of life. You are in the middle of page 407. While aiming his arrow at the mark, Arjuna said, "I see only the eye of the bird and nothing else. Not the kings, not the trees, not even the bird itself. The realization of God is enough for me. What does it matter if I don't know Sanskrit?" It doesn't matter for Sri Ramakrishna. He had the knowledge of the self, and he had Divine Mother's constant vision. Constantly he was in communion with the Divine Mother. What is the meaning of, what is the purpose of knowing Sanskrit and other things? The grace of God falls alike on all his children, learned and illiterate. Whoever longs for him, whether a person is learned in many Shastra scriptures or not, it does not matter. What matters is the grace of God. So we should pray for the grace of God. The grace of God falls alike on all his children, learned or illiterate. Whoever longs for him, longing for God is the main thing. Desire for scholarship and everything, not worthwhile. You see, Narada had all the scholarship. A few days ago, we studied Narada Sanat Kumara story. Narada has studied all the Shastras from A to Z, astronomy to zoology, everything included. All the Vedas and Puranas and mathematics and logic and grammar and linguistics and astronomy, everything you name it, he has mastered it. But he didn't have peace of mind. Scholarship will not solve the problems of life. It will bring a little bit fame and maybe monetary reward. If a person has great scholarship, what does a person do? Scholar do? Write books and papers and present papers in conferences, and awards will come, medal will come, and recognition, money also will come. That is it. But that scholarship is of a very temporary nature. No matter how great a person, how great a scholar is, a person is, when the old age comes, everything will be forgotten, memory will fade. You can't remember anything that we studied in old age. And then all the fame and everything will be a thing of the past. So that is a very temporary benefit. Also, if a person is a great scholar, the scholarship will not help him to prevent the other kind of suffering, old age, death and disease. Scholars also become old, scholars also become sick, and scholars also die. Scholarship will not change any of these things. This should not be the goal of life. That's what Sri Ramakrishna is saying here. The grace of God falls alike on all his children, learned and illiterate. Whoever longs for him, longing for God is the main thing. The father has the same love for all his children. Suppose a father has 5 children. One calls him Baba, some Ba, and some Pa. These last cannot pronounce the whole word Baba. Does the father love those who address him as Baba more than those who call him Pa? The father knows that these last are simply too young to say Baba correctly. God loves everybody alike. Scholars or not scholar does not matter to God. God does not care about our scholarship. What he looks for us is our longing for him, our love for him. If your love for God, his grace will come. Whether we are scholars or not, that is immaterial. Since this injury to my arm, a change has been coming over my mind. I have been feeling much inclined to the Naralila. Naralila means God sporting in human form. It is God himself who plays about as human beings. If God can be worshipped through a clay image, then why not through a man? This is the main point. In fact, Vedanta Upanishads say that everything in this universe, from Brahma, the creator, to the blade of grass, everything is Brahman itself. Sarvam Kalvidam Brahma. This whole universe is Brahman. Ekameva Dvitiyam, one without a second, there is nothing else, only Brahman is there. It is being seen as the world by us from the world. It is just like only rope is there, but by some people it is being seen as a snake. There are no two things, snake and rope, only one thing is there, rope. Some people with clear vision see it as a rope. Some people with confused vision, poor vision, they see it as a snake. So we are seeing Brahman, but we are thinking it is the whole world. Jnani see the world and say they know it is Brahman. Ajnani see Brahman and they think it is the world. That is the difference. So here Sri Ramakrishna says, since the injury to my arm, a change has been coming over my mind. I have been feeling much inclined to the Naralila. That means God appearing as man, sporting as man. God sports as every being. God appears as animals and plants and inanimate objects and all of nature, sun and moon and everything. God appears, only God, Brahman. But when God appears as a human being, Nara means human being, that is a very special thing. So to see God as a human being or to see human being as God, that is the greatest thing, Naralila. So Sri Ramakrishna enjoyed seeing God in all human beings. It is God himself who plays about as human beings. If God can be worshipped through a clay image, then why not through a man? Swamiji spoke about it eloquently. Swamiji said, people spend a lot of time and energy doing ritualistic worship in temples and homes. They chant, they do elaborate worship, doing abhishek, all kinds of offerings are made, 16 offerings are made, Vedic mantras are chanted, and abhishekam is made, pouring milk, yogurt, ghee, honey, all these things are poured on the Shivalinga, chanting Vedic mantra, Rudram, etc. That is one kind of worship. You are not putting it down. It has its value. But Swamiji's question was, instead of doing that kind of worship, why not serve a poor person or a sick person or a needy person who is there next to you? In him, God is present in a living form. In the image we are worshipping, God is present, but in a man who is next to us, who needs help, in him, God is present in a vibrant living form. Which is better, to worship God in the image or to worship the living presence of God in a human being? So Swamiji wrote a very nice poem. The poem is called The Living God. Swami Atmagyanji spoke about that poem once, maybe more than once. There Swamiji asks, what kind of worship are you doing? Worshipping the idols in the temples and homes? Instead of that, why not worship the living presence of God in the needy person, Daridra Narayana? In the poor person who is hungry, if you give him food, that is the highest kind of worship. If there is a sick person who needs help, if you help him, that's the highest kind of worship. Then after that will come the ritualistic worship. Homa, Abhisheka, all those things will come. They have their place also. So that is what Sri Ramakrishna is saying here. If God can be worshipped through a clay image, then why not through a man? Why not worship God in man? In every man God is present. In a wicked man, in a saintly man, in an illiterate man, in the poor man, in the rich man, in the scholar, in women, in children, God is present. Seeing God in all beings, especially human beings, and worshipping them is the highest kind of worship. Since many of you are in the Gita class, I am tempted to refer to one Gita shloka, chapter 6, verse number 30, 630. There Bhagavan Sri Krishna says exactly same thing as what Sri Ramakrishna is saying here. Chapter 6, verse number 30. There Sri Krishna says, Yo mam pashyati sarvatra sarvam cha mayi pashyati tasyaham na pranashyami sacha me na pranashyati. He who sees me in all, sarvatra mayi pashyati. All means all beings, not only human beings, animals, plants and inanimate beings too, inanimate objects too. Sarvam cha mayi pashyati. He who sees all in me. There are no two different things, God and the world. What appears as world is God himself. So he who sees that, tasyaham na pranashyami, I am never lost to him, I am always with him. Sachabe na pranashyati, he is not lost to me. That means a devotee who sees God in everything is always in constant communion with the divine, because everything he says is God himself. He sees God in everything. He does not see the name and form. He sees God in everything. That is what Sri Ramakrishna is saying here. If God can be worshipped through a clay image, then why not through a man? Once a merchant was shipwrecked. He floated to the shore of Ceylon, where Vibhishana was the king of the monsters. Vibhishana ordered his servants to bring the merchant to him. At the sight of him, Vibhishana was overwhelmed with joy and said, "Ah, he looks like my Rama." The same human form. He adorned the merchant with robes and jewels and worshipped him. When I first heard the story, I felt such joy that I cannot describe it. Vibhishana, Ravana's brother, he was made the king after Ramana was killed. And Rama made him the king of Sri Lanka, and he went back to Ayodhya. And all the other subjects were of the Vibhishana were of the same clan, Rakshasas. Human beings were not there. So when a human being went and because of his ship was wrecked, reached the shore of Sri Lanka, Vibhishana heard about it and asked the man to be brought in front of him in his royal court. When he saw a human being, he was reminded of Rama. Rama appeared as a human being. Though he was Supreme Lord himself, he appeared as a human being. So any human being reminded Vibhishana of Rama. Vibhishana was a great devotee of Rama. So that is what Sri Ramakrishna says. If you want to see God, the best place for to see God is all the human beings. In human beings, God's presence is manifest to the greatest extent. God's presence is in everything, animals and plants too. But the degree to which God's manifestation appears is the greatest in human being. So that is Sri Ramakrishna's teaching, Naralila. So he says, I have been feeling much inclined to the Naralila. Naralila, Leela means divine sport. Naralila means God sporting as human being. So we should see the divine presence in all human beings and then in all other beings also, including inanimate beings, whole of nature. So let us stop here and I shall say the closing prayer. Om Niranjanam Nityamanantarupam Bhaktanukampavita Vigraham Vai Ishavataram Parameshamidhyam Tam Ramakrishnam Shirasa Namamaha. Jai Sri Guru Maharaj Ji ki Jai. Thank you all very much and stay well. Good.